Good morning, everyone. Would like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and acknowledge the diverse indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Sotu, Blackfoot, and Kurasu, as well as Métis and Inuit, now settlers from around the world. I just want to let people know that the YouTube stream is not working, but this meeting is being recorded on Google Meet. And I'll do a roll call of committee members. Councillor Wright.
Good morning.
Councillor Knack.
Good morning.
Councillor Principe.
Good morning.
Councillor Rutherford.
Good morning.
Mr. Brose.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Mr. Madamombe.
Good morning.
Thank you. And we are also joined by other colleagues. Councillor Cartmel is here.
Good morning.
Councillor Tang is here.
Good morning.
And I'll see if other colleagues are joining online. Councillor Rice.
Good morning.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Adoption of the agenda. Someone, Councillor Knack, you want to move?
Certainly, thank you. I'll move that the October 21st, 2022 Audit Committee meeting agenda be adopted with the following change. Replacement attachment for 7.5, and that's attachment 1.
Okay, thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Approval of the minutes. You want to do that, Councillor Knack?
Oh yeah, 2 in a row. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right.
Why
So I'll
not?
move the approval of the minutes from the June 17th, 2022 Audit Committee meeting, the June 17th, 2022 Audit Selection Committee meeting, and the August 31st, 2022 Special Audit Committee meeting.
Okay, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, please vote.
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Any protocol items from colleagues? No, I do have one. I'm just waiting for a copy. Thank you. Okay, I am pleased to recognize the service of a former member of this committee, Owen Edmonton. Unfortunately, Owen is not present today, but on behalf of the committee, I would like to thank him for his service. Owen obtained a Bachelor of Science and an MBA from the University of Alberta and also completed CPA and CGA designations. In September 2001, he retired after a 32-year career with Edco Limited, where he held several senior financial executive positions. Owen has been and continues to be active in Edmonton community. He has served on the boards of numerous nonprofit organizations, including Caritas Health Group, the Capital Regional Housing Corporation, and the Catholic Archdiocese of Edmonton. And as we are all aware, he served on this committee from 2016 until 2022. During his time on the Audit Committee, Owen was always well informed and provided valuable input and perspectives into our discussions. He was a respectful colleague, and his background in finance and passion for our community were showcased in all of his contributions. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone here when I say that his presence at our meetings will be missed. I would also like to extend my appreciation to Janet and his daughters for supporting Owen as he served his committee and his community on this committee. I wish Owen and his family all the best in their next adventure. So if you could please come together, give a big round of applause to Mr. Owen, even though he's not here. Really appreciate his service. Okay. All right, select items for debate. Who would like to go first? Councillor Rutherford?
I'd like to select 7.5.
7.5. Councillor Wright?
I'd like to select 7.1 and 7.2 together.
1, 7.2. There are speakers. I'll 7.3. I'll select 7.4. They're together. And I will select 7.9 and 7. Oh, sorry, Councillor Knack.
You got the one, I was just going to select the other one, 7, 9, 7,
7.9 and
10.
7.10. Okay, I'll go. Councillor Knack. Councillor Principe.
I was going to select 7.8, please. Do I need to select 7.7 as well?
Yes, there.
Okay, I'll just select both then.
7.7, 7.8. Okay. So that's 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, and 7.6 would be selected too then because they're together, right? Yeah. That's everything. Okay. Request to speak. We have few speakers. Councillor Rutherford, you want to? You have a copy? Yeah.
Okay, so I move that the Audit Committee hear from the following speakers and panels where appropriate. On items 7.3 and 7.4, the City Governance of Fort Edmonton Park Audit and Administrative Response to City Governance for Fort Edmonton Park Audit. Darren Dalgleish, Fort Edmonton Management Company, FEMCO, in person. And on 7.9, 7.10, Safety Code Permits and Inspection Audit and Administration's Response to the Safety Codes Permit and Inspections Audit, Don Tolsma, Canadian Home Builders Association, Edmonton Region, remote.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Request for specific time on the agenda, none. Councillor inquiries. Inquiries, report to be dealt at a different meeting, none. Request to reschedule, none. Maybe there will be. Unfinished business, none. Public reports, none. So, to clerk, to manage our agenda, we are only scheduled till noon, and we would not get to all the reports. I would suggest, if it's fine with the city auditor, that today we try to get through 3 items. One where we have public speakers, 7.3, 7.4, as well as 7.9 and 7.10. And we also deal with 7.6 and 7.5 because discussion on those will have, I think it will inform our discussion on budget. Yeah. Yeah, we can ask about that. Does, No, we can ask, does 7, 8 has any implications for upcoming budget? Can I ask city auditor about that? 7, 8, and 7, 9?
I'd have to defer that question to administration because I wouldn't know what is contained in any budget package.
It does? It does have budget implications? Okay. Yeah, we would not be able to get through that. So, Jennifer, if you could please come up. I just want to get a sense from the committee as if this item, can we refer it to, I don't know what the procedural thing would be, to budget discussion instead of here? Can it be discussed as part of the budget?
Maybe I'll defer that budget question to Stacey Padbury. I'm sorry.
Because sometimes, because we would not get through all of these items. So I just find a way, what would be, where can we discuss this?
So appreciate that you're trying to manage your agenda here today, but the role of audit committee is quite a bit different than the role of council. And
Yeah.
so I wouldn't recommend that you take an audit issue
Okay.
and move it to a budget meeting.
Okay, so we would have to decide then which out of all these we need to prioritize today for discussion. Okay. So what is the will of committee? Councillor Rutherford? Quickly, so.
Yeah, I know I selected it, so I'm biased, but I think 7.5 has the largest totality of impact on, and literally that report was generated for our consideration for the 4-year budget. So that to me is the highest priority. I understand the need for some questions, but we do also have the ability to ask any questions on any budget item as part of the budget process. So I think I would ask my colleagues, does it need to be asked now, or could it be asked as part of the budget process question? Okay.
You can ask offline, okay, so good. So we don't have to deal with 7.7, 7.8, okay, good, all right. Right, okay.
And I think even if we have speakers, I think those speakers are well-versed in coming to committee, and I don't know if they probably are used to sometimes their stuff getting deferred, so I don't think that has to be the biggest consideration.
Okay, Councillor Cartmill?
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. I know Mr. Dalglish is here really out of a sense of courtesy if anybody had any questions about the Fort Edmonton Park audit, but it's not particularly big and you know, it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
For lack of a better phrase.
I do have questions on that, but they are not, there is no implications for budget. Maybe we can send that report to
Well,
the
Mr.
next committee.
Dalglish will probably be at the non-stat public hearing ahead of budget, so
Yeah.
that might be a place too for questions about Fort Edmonton Park generally.
Would you be okay, city auditor, that if we send that to the next committee?
Absolutely.
Okay, so 7.1, 7.2, 7.7, 7.8, so that will leave us with I'm already lost my track. That will leave, how about the dashboard report? Can that be deferred, sent to the next meeting?
Yes, it's a good news story.
Yes,
so
it
we
doesn't
can-
have budget implications.
Okay. Or I'm also wondering, in order to keep everything in the public domain, should we look at scheduling another half-day meeting for audit prior to budget?
Will be almost impossible because of the scheduling, but we have a committee coming up early next year where we can look at having this, if we can manage our agenda in that committee, we can have another scheduled committee.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's good. So to clerk, we will not deal with today 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. And we will not deal with item 7.7 and 7.8. Okay,
And so to confirm then, committee is looking to postpone the following items to a future audit committee meeting: 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4,
Yeah.
7.7, and 7.8?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You need a motion, right?
We will need a motion for
Okay,
that.
Councillor Wright, can you move that?
So moved.
Okay, please vote.
And we're just getting it loaded, so just bear with us for one moment. And sorry, Mr. Mayor, just to confirm, do you wish to postpone these items to a future meeting or to refer them to council without a recommendation?
No, no, to future meeting. Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
excellent. The
Future
motion
meeting.
is then ready
Yes.
for voting.
Yeah, yeah.
We're just waiting on one vote. Councillor Rutherford?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Okay, display the votes, please. All right, here we go. Thank you. Okay, so that is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. Okay, our first item is 7.5, City Financial Condition Update.
Perfect.
Yeah.
If we can go to the slide with 7.5 as the heading, please, clerk. Good morning. Before I start, as usual, is to introduce our Deputy City Auditors from the Office of City Auditor, Janine Maraglod, who is on virtually, and Sharon Hahn, who is behind me to the right here. So in 2020, the office reported on the city's financial health by looking at the 9 indicators that you see on the slide. Those 9 indicators are focused on 5 things really: revenue, operating spending, capital spending, debt, and financial position. Part of the original audit's thoughts and ideas was to reproduce this report in future years, which is why this engagement is being reported in this year's report. And it's very apropos timing because we are getting into a new 4-year budget cycle, so this information is designed to inform decision-making around budgets. From a process perspective, we recompiled the information and gathered the municipal comparison information, and with administration support, provided the explanation on each indicator. I'm going to add 2 bits of commentary around this report. The first one is that these are very, very high-level indicators, and the context and the story behind the indicators are complex and multivariate. The second one is specific to the municipal comparisons. We added language, I think it was carryover from the previous report, that an apples-to-apples comparison is difficult because programs, service levels, and how services are delivered do vary from city to city. So overall, you'll find in our report that the city is relying a little bit more on property taxes and less on provincial and federal funding. Our operational spending has decreased relative to inflation and population growth. The third thing is long-term debt per capita is increasing as expected, along with the cost of servicing that debt. And lastly, the value of capital assets are increasing, as are the condition of those assets. Now, I think I frame all these measures in the context of 2020-21, which is we had a pandemic, and that had impact on operating costs and revenues. And that would be the end of the presentation with respect to the report.
Thank you so much. So, Councillor, questions to our city auditor, Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, I have so many questions. I'm just trying to figure out where to begin. I guess I'm going to start with the indicator on the debt. And both the percentages in operating spending and the per capita. I know that there is some comparators from an audit perspective. Are there any flags that you would heed of council with those numbers as we go into looking at this budget for 2023 to 2026?
So when I look at the indicators, I don't think there's anything that would highlight to me as something of concern. But again, I go to the fact that these are 9 indicators for a city that has over $3 billion in operating expenses. And the complexities behind these indicators are so multivariate. You know, it goes back to policy too. If there's a decision by council to take on more debt at a time when the interest rates were low, that actually factors into how these numbers come about, and that has to be considered as part of the longer-term planning, financial planning as well.
Have you seen the proposed changes to the debt management policy?
No, I have not, Councillor.
Because, you know, the report discusses the current debt policy, but that's actually up for decision. We discussed it at the last council, and it's up for decision, and I would be, if you don't have the answer today, I think for me, I would value your expertise in looking at that, and based on these indicators, are there any flags with approving that policy? Because it does change the debt limit. So that's one question. And then, do we have any sense of the why behind the numbers? So I think for me, I always like to compare qualitative data with quantitative data with qualitative data. I think you get a better understanding with mixed methodology. But so I want to get some sense if you know anything behind the numbers. Like why, for example, is Calgary, like when you look at the comparatives of Calgary and Edmonton, we're like 21% higher. We consistently, except for on one indicator, higher than Calgary.
Yeah, and we attempted, with the support of management, provide a why with respect to the indicators. And in terms of a why comparing Calgary to Edmonton, that wasn't part of the mandate of us conducting this report. Now, if I may add, normal procedure is that administration would produce a report or get up here and speak to you about their response to the report itself. And I think in that presentation, it would provide a whole lot more context and background behind some of these indicators and the finances of the city.
So wait for the response to ask those questions.
I think it would be quite value add to have Stacey Padbury come up and deal with 7.6, and then they'll frame the conversation a little bit better and maybe provide more information.
So one of the things that I did a bit of research, because I really didn't understand what this number meant whatsoever, if I'm being completely honest in my learning curve. So the financial assets to liability ratio is at 1.51. Can you break down what that actually means? Because when I looked, I couldn't see any comparators for other municipalities. I did see the comparator. We used to be at 2 point something, and going below 1 is kind of bad, but we've been staying stable at this. Like, can you just break that down for me in a bit more lay terms? Because I don't understand what that number really means or tells us.
Yes, in its most simplistic way of explaining, it's all the assets of the organization. So you take some of our buildings, some of our equipment, as being subsets of assets, and then the debt, the liability that we take on as a city. And that ratio, the higher that ratio is, the better it is, because you have more, it's kind of like looking at a home. Your home's value might be $1 million. I don't live in $1 million home. I'm just using it as an example. And then you take a mortgage on for, say, $500,000, then your ratio would probably be 2 there.
Okay, that helps. Thank you so much. That's all my questions for the auditor. Thank you.
Thank you. I would invite our administration to as well come up, please, because these are cross-referenced items, so we can ask them question at the same time. But
Should they do their presentation first then, before we?
yeah, and ask that they do their presentation as well, right? So there's a response, and that response may answer some of those questions as well, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
so,
you can come back again.
yeah, okay, yeah. So what's the, but is the ticket? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, good morning. So we're pleased to present administration's response to the city financial condition review audit. Joining me today is Harm Rai, Branch Manager of Financial Services, and Milat Petigara, Principal Policy Advisor for Financial Services, as well as our corporate economist, Felicia Muthieri. We accept the Office of the City Auditor's conclusion about the city's financial condition. We also appreciate the auditor's comments about the effectiveness of the city's financial planning process in assessing the risk of the city's financial position. In recent years, administration has made a number of changes to its planning process to ensure the long-term financial viability of the city. We are committed to the continuation of implementing practices that manage risk, consider inflation, consider population growth, and diversify funding sources. To contextualize the financial trends presented, the OCA encouraged us to provide additional details in our management response, and we've done this in detail. I want to take a few moments of your time to highlight some of the key considerations. If you can move me to the next slide, please. We are aware and have presented to Executive Committee and Audit Committee in the past that the city is increasingly reliant on the property tax levy. This graph outlines the city's historical tax and non-tax operating revenues as a percentage of total operating revenues over the previous 30 years. Over the previous 12 years, property tax revenues have grown in their share of total operating revenues from 51% in 2010 to 57% in 2022. This divergence has occurred because when adjusting for inflation and scaling to a per capita basis, non-tax revenues have not grown. The city also uses City Policy C624, the fiscal policy for revenue generation, to assess the appropriateness of revenues, of the source of revenue for services. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Harm Rai to review some additional and pertinent trends.
Thanks, Stacey. Next slide. So the city has generally shifted its fiscal policy in response to economic environments. Over the past 25 years, the city has experienced distinct fiscal phases. From 1993 to 1999, the city contracted the size of municipal government, including service cuts, absolute reductions in full-time equivalents, limited capital growth, and limited investment in infrastructure renewal with deteriorating asset conditions. We had periods of moderate growth in early 2000s to counteract inflationary pressures with some service growth, along with an increase in corporate full-time equivalents to keep pace with population growth. However, with a limited capital program, asset condition continued to deteriorate. To respond to a rapidly growing city and economy, the city underwent significant growth from 2005 to 2016. This period saw added and expanded services, significant capital investment, and implementation of a comprehensive infrastructure renewal program. From 2017 to 2019, in response to the economic contraction of 2015 to 16 and subsequent slower recovery, the city slowed growth in taxation and operating spending while maintaining a capital program and continued to invest in infrastructure renewal. More recently, due to the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on Edmonton's economy, the city again entered a period of contraction. Operating expenditures per capita have been reduced, as well as tax and non-tax revenue per capita. In 2020, Council approved the lowest tax increase in 23 years at 1.3%. Following that, in 2021, Council approved a 0.3% tax decrease and a tax increase of 1.9% in 2022, one of the lowest tax increases across Canada at that time. Looking ahead to the 23 to 26 budget cycle, the city is positioning itself for a post-pandemic recovery. COVID has had an impact on some of the city's revenue streams, including transit and community recreation facility revenues. The proposed 23 to 26 operating budget will include a strategy to respond to these revenue decreases as the city enters the next phase of its fiscal policy. Next slide. So this slide shows city's inflation-adjusted total operating expenditures per capita from 1993 to 2022. We can see how the total operating spending trends have changed based on the particular fiscal period we just discussed. So during the city's growth phase, operating expenditure per capita increased from approximately $2,500 to just over $3,000 in 2016. From 2017 to 2019, as Council shifted its fiscal policy through an easing in the growth of spending and taxation, operating expenditures per capita tilted toward a flatter position. From 2020 onward, another change in fiscal policy was introduced in response to the economic effects of COVID-19. Since 2020, operating expenditures per capita have reduced from approximately $3,200 to $2,900. Next slide. So this slide shows the city's inflation-adjusted tax and non-tax operating revenue per capita over a 30-year period, from 1993 to 2022. So during the city's growth phase from 2015 to 16, we can see how property tax revenues per capita escalated from just over $1,000 in 2005 to $1,700 in 2016. From 2017 to 2019, as fiscal policy shifted into a stabilization phase, taxes per capita tilted towards a flatter position. From 2020 onward, with a shift into a contraction phase in response to the economic effects of COVID-19, tax revenues per capita declined from just under $1,800 to approximately $1,600. Meanwhile, inflation-adjusted non-tax revenues per capita have witnessed little growth from 2005 to 2021, with a significant reduction in value in 2022 due to COVID and transit revenues, community recreation facility revenues, and photo enforcement revenues. Non-tax revenue per capita was $1,350 in 2005, with little change by 2021 at $1,390. In 2022, we're looking a forecasted decline of $1,200 per capita. Since 2008, there has also been a divergence between tax and non-tax revenues, indicating a greater reliance on property tax levy to close the gap in net requirements in each year's operating budget process. Council Policy C624, Fiscal Policy for Revenue Generation, provides a framework for assessing the appropriate revenue sources for services. Next slide. In the city's financial condition review, a comparison was made between city's actual annual operating expenses, so the blue line on this chart, and operating expenses from 2000 forecasted out to 2021. If operating spending had only increased by inflation and population growth, which is the red line. We agree that inflation and population growth should be key drivers of operating expense growth. The City of Edmonton faces different inflationary pressures than residents do based on the expenditure makeup. The Consumer Price Index, CPI, measures price changes experienced by Canadian consumers who spend money on food, housing, and clothing, whereas municipal governments build roads, bridges, trees and buses. Inflation for these items would not be clearly captured in the CPI, which is why we use MPI, Municipal Price Index, to estimate the inflation rate for the cost of providing municipal services. In the report, actual operating expenses between 2000 and 2021 were almost 22% higher than expenses only grown by consumer inflation and population growth. However, if operating expenses grew by estimated municipal inflation and population growth, that difference narrows to almost 6% by 2021. The difference has been narrowing since 2015, but has been most pronounced in 2020 and 2021. Operating spending declined in 2020 and 2021 relative to 2019 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, as the city responded to changing public health guidance and resulted in the closure of facilities and reduction in certain city services, combined with various expense management strategies necessary to manage the pandemic's financial impacts. City operating expenses generally grow with population and inflation. Growth greater than population and inflation can be attributed to demand for new services as a result of increasing demand within a growing city, including new facilities, roads, bridges, and enhancement to the transit system like our LRT. And the cost to address the city's infrastructure deficit through focused capital asset renewal, balanced with capital asset growth that required the use of debt to expand the city's capital program, resulting in an increase in debt servicing. Next slide. So we selected this graphic to show clearly that both population and urban land use of the city continues to increase. More than 12,000 hectares of land was urbanized and more than 300,000 people immigrated to the city during the last 20 years. As the city has expanded over the years, there has been a corresponding increase in the services, such as fire hall, roads, and recreation centers. Next slide. So the city's financial health and sustainability is supported through city policies. This slide highlights some of those policies that are more directly related to the financial condition indicators included in the auditor's report. As highlighted in the auditor's report, over the past 5 years, the financial stabilization reserve balance has been stable at just above the minimum balance of 5% of tax-supported expenditures. Maintaining a healthy reserve balance to address emergent financial needs is critical to ensure the financial health and sustainability of the city. City Policy C629, Financial Stabilization Reserve, requires that a risk-based review of the unappropriated financial stabilization reserve be completed every 3 years to ensure the sufficiency of the minimum and target percentages. Administration conducted a risk-based review of the unappropriated FSR balance in 2021 and confirmed that from a risk-based perspective, the minimum and target balances of 5% and 8.3% of general government expenses were appropriate. Continued use of the FSR for only emergent purposes is prudent financial management. The city carefully manages its reserve balances and completes a full reserves review every 3 years, with the most recent one completed in 2021. The auditor's report also discussed the city's debt per capita as well as debt servicing related to operating spending. The long-term debt per capita and debt servicing payments as a percentage of the operating spending have both increased from the period 2019 to 2021. Administration recently shared with Council the revised debt management fiscal policy. The purpose of that policy is to ensure that debt is prudently and effectively used by the city to advance city infrastructure priorities, while maintaining levels of debt that are affordable and do not jeopardize the financial health of the city. Capital asset conditions are discussed in the auditor's report as well. Maintaining assets is critical to the financial health of the city. Asset failures and deteriorating asset conditions can lead to significant costs in future years. The city uses policies such as the neighborhood renewal policy and infrastructure asset management policy to support healthy asset conditions. Recently, there have been discussions with Council on an increased investment in asset renewal through a dedicated levy and rationalization and right-sizing of inventory of city assets to help support appropriate asset conditions. These are just some examples and demonstrate that the financial health of the city is supported by well-established policies. Next slide. So is the city financially viable? The city continues to be financially viable. This is because we have a resilient financial position, sound financial governance policies, balanced budgets, infrastructure and asset management practices with funding strategies, which we continue to discuss with Council as a part of the 23 to 26 budget deliberations, prudent reserve and debt management, and a AA credit rating. Keep in mind, however, a component of financial viability is also responding to risks and challenges. There are increasing pressures on the city's financial viability. The economic climate has increased and the financial pressures on the city. A combination of reduced operating and capital transfers from the province and reduced tolerance for property tax increases challenged the city's response to COVID. As the economy began to recover from the pandemic's impacts, the pace of inflation accelerated and interest rates have been increasing to bring inflation down. These two developments are not only increasing financial pressures on the city, but on households and its businesses as well, which could mean a further erosion in tolerance for property tax increases and increased demand for support from the city. There are also ongoing pressures in the form of service demands. Edmonton's population is projected to continue growing. Globally aware citizens are now demanding the city take on greater scope with a greater variety of services as well as higher service level not demanded in the past. Lastly, councils and the city's aspirations to evolve and build a better future through strategic plan will take significant resources, which also places financial pressures on the city. In the previous 10 years, taxation revenues have shouldered more of the burden than non-tax revenues in the city's operating budgets. Next slide. And thank you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. All right, Council, all right, just get the list again. Here we go, Councillor Wright.
Hi, thank you very much, and for coming and combining the two presentations. I do appreciate that. I do have some questions related to the total revenue. So I know we've had a greater reliance on property taxes, and so I just want to know what the impact has been on the grants and funding in that from the two different levels of government. I would expect that COVID, those grants and that increased on the federal level. Was the same seen on the provincial level, or?
Okay, yeah, so we had some grants to support us during COVID. We had actually in 2020 and 2021 we had federal support and provincial support, and then we had recent transit funding from the province as well. So that did support us through COVID. We also had our own expense management strategies that we implemented to help us as well, just to get through the COVID period. In general, in terms of funding from the province, in terms of infrastructure grants, where we've seen a decrease is on the MSI grant, the local government fiscal framework, which is coming out, and that's around, estimates are around $35 million annually would be from what they've previously committed to what they're forecasted to provide through the local government fiscal framework.
Okay, so that's coming forward a reduction, but what's contributed to, I guess, it's 14.4% in 2021? How has that been impacted by both levels, I guess? Or who contributes to that?
So that's both levels of government. That's federal and provincial. So if you're I think you're referencing
breakdown. Could you give me, like, so has the federal government's drop been like 10% and the provincial's 4%, or how did we come up with that 14.4?
So, Councillor, just let me find the 14.4 you're referencing real quick here.
Page 3 of the auditor's update. So maybe it should be directed to the auditor then as to where he compiled those numbers from.
I'll leave it to Harm as he's flipping through pages to find you that information, because I don't have that detail, but I do. Yeah, Sharon Hahn has said it's consolidating our data, but.
Yeah, so maybe let me try to answer this. So if you look at page 3, what you see is that indicator actually fluctuates a fair bit. It goes from 17.9% in 2019 to 21.7% in 2020 and 14.4% in 2021. So over the horizon, what we've been looking at is the federal funding has been targeted to very specific programs, including targeting specific funding to cities and municipalities to help them recover from COVID. But what you see, when you see that being calculated, there's a little bit of lumpiness because we only recognize revenue when we actually incur the expenditure and meet the stipulation requirements. So, but I can tell you the trend for government grants is lower at the provincial level primarily because of MSI. I'd have to do a little bit more long-term trending on the federal government. I'm not sure that we've seen reduced funding, but we've seen different things be funded at different points in time with different focuses. But for sure, MSI has reduced compared to what we've previously had.
Okay, thank you for that clarity.
Sorry, Councillor Wright, just to add on to that, it took me a while to find that number, but yeah, in addition to what Stacey just mentioned there, so the decrease you see from 2020 to 2021 goes from 21.7% to 14.4%.
Yeah.
In 2021, as Stacey mentioned, so we recognized grant revenue as we incur expenditures on the capital projects. We had significant expenditures for LRT, so we recognized a lot of grant revenue in 2020,
okay.
And not as much in 2021. So that has to do with the part of the decrease there.
Okay. Okay, I did want to have another question. Just wondering, I'll just quickly ask, household income levels tax levy versus household income is, whose average income level is higher, Edmonton or Calgary?
I'll maybe ask Malek to respond. And we might have to get you that question, get that question.
Okay, because that's a variable
we
that
can come back,
goes
yeah.
into that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. I'll go to now Madam Ombi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This
Can
is
you
a
move
question.
close to the mic if you don't mind?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
This is a question for the city auditor. A follow-up to the indicators. Just going back to the page. On the 2020-2021 indicators, did the auditors make an effort to at least try to normalize the numbers from the COVID effect so that they get a better sense of how the city is trending?
Thank you for the question. We did not normalize the data for the pandemic-related trends. These are a set of data that we would provide to you for a fuller picture of the financial situation of the city. However, we can probably go back and provide follow-up information on normalized data.
Yeah, that would be useful information because then it would help to assess, how the city really responded, to the situation, and as well, ensure that there is a better understanding of, how effective the targets are for the indicators and how well, the city is managing that as well. Yeah. The follow-up question is just by looking at the S&P ratings, I do notice that the city of Edmonton at AA, which is a very good rating, appears to be at the low end of the other compared cities. What is the auditor's assessment of that position?
Well, as a team, we had a pretty hearty conversation around credit ratings, and I can tell you that our team does not have the skill set or the expertise of rating organizations like Moody's and S&P. I go back to these. You get two letters on an organization, and underneath that are a lot of complexities that drive that rating. I wouldn't be able to offer an opinion as to why, AA plus for Calgary versus us at AA, what that gap might be.
Okay. No, thank you for that. And the last comment I have is on the, capital budget. Given the fact that we just heard that the city has sound financial sustainability policies, I'm assuming that the city auditor looked at that as well and made the assessment on those. The question is for the capital budget, does it not appear to be too aggressive? Because when I compare the Edmonton capital budget, it does appear to be on the higher end, again, compared to the other cities that were noted in your report.
I'll answer the first question, and I'll defer to the second one. I think the first question was with respect to the policy, an assessment of the policy itself. Our office will not dive into policy. That's the purview of council. I think even if we did, it would have been out of scope for the purpose of this audit. So I'll defer to Stacey for the second part of the question.
So when we look at the capital, and your question was around, is the capital budget too aggressive? So when we looked at the capital budget, we're mindful that there are a number of funding sources that we can leverage, and primarily those are government grants. They are the pay-as-you-go that we have in our tax levy, some money around reserves, and then debt servicing. So the budget that we've just tabled for capital utilizes the funding sources within the parameters of the limits. It can be, I don't want to call it aggressive, it's a large capital plan because there are very large projects currently underway, primarily being Yellowhead and LRT, which take up a significant portion of that $7.5 billion.
And from the overall assessment, is the level of comfort that this is, sufficient and meets all the policy requirements?
Is that a question for me or for the auditor?
Sorry, I could leave it with you, but if that's appropriate, the city auditor, may probably go first.
Yeah, in terms of the capital budget, I think it is reasonable and sufficient, and we've been careful to make sure that we've tabled a budget that keeps us within our financial policies.
Thank you.
Sorry, and from the auditor standpoint?
It's a tough question because in terms of how much a city invests is based on its capital plan, investments into the city, and those decisions are made at a policy level. So if we want to invest in, 20 new recreational center, that's going to come at a large cost. And what's the benefit that you're going to derive from it? So, an overall opinion as to whether, we are sustainable or not would be pretty tough with all the factors that play into the calculation.
Thank you. I'll start with the property taxes as a percentage of total revenue. So this is to administration. There's two components. One is raising property taxes. The other one is raising assessment growth, growth in the assessed overall growth in the assessment of what we charge on, right? So we probably won't have the breakdown on which contributes what, right?
So when we look at the graphs here, and when we say that property tax as a percentage of total revenue, that is the complete collection of property tax is agnostic on assessment.
Got it. So growth is included in that, right? So growth of assessed value or overall growth in the properties that we assess.
Well, I want to be careful because what's really included in that number is the tax levy required as a result of your budgetary decisions. And so there is an element of growth in it, but I would just flag that we get some assessment growth year over year for real growth, but just because of the value of a property goes up does not mean that the city generates more income.
I understand that. And also, does EPCOR dividends are included in this as a property tax, or they're separate? Because I don't see them under the grants or transfers. Where are they going to?
They would be considered an other revenue.
Other revenues, okay. And on the long-term debt per capita, the total amount, say 2021, $3,118, that would also include tax that is backed by tax levy, but is self-supported through grants from the federal government in the case of the LRT, South Century LRT, and also the CRL downtown.
Yes, I believe all debt numbers included in these reports include total debt and don't break apart tax-supported, self-supporting, tax guaranteed, or self-liquidating.
Yeah, I think I think from a transparency point of view, it will be helpful to communicate that to public, because otherwise this is not accurate, even though it's backed by tax levy, but we have two major funding sources that are independent of tax that pay for that debt. I think this could leave, I would say, not accurate impression in people's mind that the per capita debt is this high when we have two other funding sources paying part of it.
So for purposes of, and I don't want to speak for the city auditor, but at this level, we're doing very high-level indicators on the corporation as a whole. We did bring to you on Monday what tax-supported debt per capita looks like. So we monitor it for purposes of the overall high-level evaluation of fiscal sustainability. Debt per capita is a pretty common indicator, and it would be total debt over population.
No, I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that a lot of media people do pay attention to the auditor's report. But if they see this number of 3,000 and so, and when it's not fully funded by tax levy, if there are other funding sources, just from a transparency and communications point of view.
And absolutely, Mayor. And earlier in my presentation, I did frame these as very high-level aggregate measures, and the subtleties behind the measure are, pretty complex as well.
Yeah. Okay. And same observation with the debt servicing payments as a percentage of the operating spending, because that would be a different number if we were to include federal grants and the CRL revenue. Yeah, those are the kind of observations that I had. Thank you so much for the report. Really appreciate it. I'll go to Councillor Cutmell. Oh yeah, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A question for administration as it relates to kind of credit ratings. Is there a plan or a program that is kind of actively managed and monitored to move the city's credit rating back to kind of AA plus? And I guess conversely, is there also active thought being given to making sure that it doesn't move to kind of single A plus downward as well?
I would say that there is active monitoring and active thought around not having the credit rating go below AA. In terms of moving the credit rating to AA plus, we monitor that, but I would say that we balance that also with the vision of council and some of the transformational projects. So while LRT is, and some of these large-scale infrastructure programs are underway, it is unlikely that we'll see that credit rating go back to AA plus while we're trying to do the transformational stuff.
Follow up to that, Ms. Padbury, is there then an active discussion with S&P for what they would need to see, in terms to move back? Is that the completion cessation of large capital projects such as LRT, and then it would move back, or is it more fulsome than that with S&P?
It's more, I would say it's more fulsome, but we've also had those conversations around what would it look like to move back to AA, and I think it is a fair characterization that we would need a less aggressive capital plan over time for us to move in the upward direction and less reliance on debt.
Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Cardwell.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Thanks for both reports. So I just want to perhaps just clarify a couple of details. So when we're talking about increases in expenditures, we're talking about net expenditures, so exclusive of non-cash or strictly cash, stripping out some of those corporate ins and outs. Is that fair, or are we just looking at essentially the bottom line budget numbers?
Expenditures in this context are the expenditures from the financial statement, so accrued expenditures. So they'd be net of recoveries from reserves, recoveries from other parts of the operations. It's a slightly different view than you would get from a budget document. But it's not the net operating requirement. It's not the tax levy. It is the expenditures of the corporation.
So what about non-tax expenditures like depreciation, for instance? Would that be in or out?
So I believe depreciation is in these numbers because they're crafting them on the financial statements, whereas that's an example of what's not in your budget, though.
Right. So because my next question was then to Mr. Quach is, did we see the graph or the comparison of increased expenditures from a financial statement perspective compared to inflation and population increase, and we see a divergence there. My next question would be, did we get deeper into the details about where that increase was? So did we do a department by department analysis of those expense lines?
No, the intent of the report was to stay again at the corporate aggregate level. We don't have that information, but if that's something that committee would like, we can definitely compile it with the other information that I'll be sending back.
Well, I mean, there's the general comment. Essentially, we've got a generalized report then. We're looking at the bottom line of the financial statement. And the generalized response, if I can say it that way, and I'm not being critical, but is that we've got increased service level demands, we've got increased potentially lines of service, we're doing more for more people, not doing the same for more people, is essentially the comment. So my question then is, well, what more are we doing? Where is that spending moving beyond population plus inflation? And again, I recognize it's getting a little wonky, but if we're getting increasing declining balance depreciation calculations, that's one place where it might exceed inflation plus population, right? So I'd like to see the discrete lines, even on a branch or even a department level, that begins to indicate where we've diverted, not necessarily to bring it back, I don't want to use that language, but to understand where we are and perhaps why we are.
So, if you don't mind, I think one of the things that I would just caution is we could probably help the auditor get that from a actual expenditure basis on how we craft budgets. Our systems, when we prepare publicly the PSAB financial statements, we don't actually break depreciation down necessarily into department, branch, program. So doing something like that would be difficult on the financial statement basis, but is something that we could do on the budget view of the world, budget to actuals.
Well, so to be clear, I'm not looking for depreciation to be broken down that way. I'm looking for the delta increase to be broken down even by department or branch. So, aggregate depreciation might be a line. I'm not looking for more detail on that necessarily. But I'd like to know if the delta between population plus inflation and what our actual spending increase was, is that all in operations? Is that all in IIS? Is that all in where is it more discreetly? Would be my question.
Yeah, and if the data is available, we can definitely compile it, working with Stacy here to provide that information.
Okay, so that's for committee to maybe ask as a subsequent or something like that. But thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that will be good information. Following the line, Councillor Paquette.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just following up on that, just slightly, tangentially, I suppose, it does raise the question of, Councillor Carmel asking about population growth and inflation growth, because for the past 4 years, our tax rate has been 2.6, 1.3, 0, 1.8. And as far as I'm aware, that's below any other major municipality in Canada. And if we were actually doing it by population growth and inflation, for example, for 2022, our population growth in Edmonton was 1.88%, I think. And inflation for 2022, I believe, was 7.2%, which would have meant a tax increase of 9.08%. So when we're having these conversations, I'm wondering if we are injecting that sort of information into how we are reporting, because essentially that is a massive reduction in spending power.
Councillor, is that for administration or for the auditor?
Honestly, either can take it because I think that it overlaps.
So I, conceptually, I agree with what you've just stated, but what I would say is when the auditor looked at these numbers and they looked at operational spending, they look at it for a time period, and so what the graph shows is the cumulative impact of where we've landed on population plus inflation against what was actually done. So in years of high growth, we may have been over population plus inflation, and there are other years that we're under, but what you've just highlighted is why we're seeing the downward dip in the line.
Okay, thank you. I'm wondering if the auditor has a response as well to the same question.
So, Council, I don't think I can add much more to what Stacy had responded with.
Okay, fair enough. Because you know, I also gave some thought to what the mayor was just saying, and that is that I'm wondering if in this process of reporting, if we're doing as much service as we can with the public to explain these issues to them, because essentially for the past many years, the city of Edmonton has seen, in real terms, as far as spending power, a reduction in our budget year after year after year. We are not keeping pace with inflation, and we are not keeping pace with population growth. And so when the public hears about dollar figures and things like that, their go-to is, oh my goodness, this council is wasting so much money or continually increasing taxes, but we are not keeping up. And it's being reflected in our maintenance and our services. So I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts on that.
I think I would maybe just say that's one of the reasons why we wanted to give the presentation, so that we could highlight early in that presentation that while this report is done holistically on indicators over a 20-year period, and then this is the update for the 3 years, we do look at those trending in discrete, like we've compartmentalized it so that you can see where we were growing and where we were retracting or being more moderate in our growth. And so that was part of the intention of bringing you a presentation that showed that, but just mindful that I will take note of that communication, because I think that does need to really be a message that we convey in our budgets also.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette. Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you. So I first want to take a high level, and then I'm going to dive again into more questions for administration. But if I'm reading this report at a high level, both the administration's response and the auditor, in terms of fiscal sustainability, what I'm hearing is we're okay, but we're needing to be cautious. Is my interpretation of that as an overall generalized statement correct? I'll go to the city auditor first.
I would say generally we're financially well. However, I'm not sure I would throw the cautious word in there. I would say you'd reflect on these indicators and this financial information to help inform decision making as you move forward into the 4-year budget.
Yeah, but if we were to say, double down on growth investment and debt, like that wouldn't, based on what we're reading in the report, that would really impact these indicators negatively.
Yes, and the credit rating, as Stacy had mentioned earlier, in terms of how much debt do you want to carry on, how much capital investment do you want to put into the budget.
Mm-hmm. So Ms. Padbury, to you the same question. Is my understanding correct?
So I do think that the city is in a reasonably well financial sustainable position. We're also, and I think that as a city, you balance your financial sustainability with service delivery to your citizens, and you have to decide how cautious you want to be versus what level of risk are you willing to take. But at this current level, I think we're well placed. I would caution you about excessive spending that draws that 1.5 down too much. And of course, we'd never want that to be below 1.
Okay, so another question to you, Ms. Padbury, is it was mentioned that the financial health of the city is influenced by policy. So in administration's perspective, are there policy gaps right now to protecting and safeguarding our financial health and stability?
I would say nothing major. I think that, and this is when we observe gaps or observe concerns, we bring you policies. And so a couple of years ago, we brought City Council the policy on fiscal policy for revenue generation. I think that we've brought you a revised debt policy, so we try to respond in real time to the gaps or deficiencies that we see as they come available.
Perfect. So I think that Ms. McCabe is anticipatory in my next line of questioning, because what I also read in these reports is, and it couples with other reports that we have received from administration as well, that were motion driven. But what I'm hearing is that sprawl is unsustainable from a fiscal health perspective.
I'm not sure if I'd make that direct of a statement, but what we did outline in the city plan is staying the course of growing within our existing boundary will make us a more financially sustainable city.
But it's not fair to just look at population growth, because when we look at capital growth expenditures, there's more cost to build out than if the growth is where there's already infrastructure currently existing. Or am I know there's like a renewal piece to that as well. Did you want to talk to that maybe?
It's not quite that simple. Not the renewal part I want to speak about is, but when we densify our city, you also have to make capital investments such as the LRT in order to be able to reach the densities that we're looking for that make us a more financially sustainable city, according to how we're growing as a city.
Yeah. But then we also have to make choices about whether that LRT continues to expand out southward, or if neighborhoods that have been waiting for an LRT for 40 years will get it.
That's correct, and that's part of the city plan in terms of looking at how we grow and the mass transit planning. So some of the really important policy work that's underway in land use planning, mass transit planning, our industrial work that we're doing, our substantial completion policy, as just a few examples.
Okay, and one thing I found interesting in Admin's report was that in the early 2000s, there was a projected $4 billion gap in ability to pay for capital, and we're still, I feel like we're having deja vu, we're here again. Did you want to speak to that, Ms. Padbury?
Yeah, I think it's always been a challenge for cities to be able to deal both with growth and renewal. And while those numbers might be the same, I think I'm not sure that we converted them to like $4.4 billion in 2000 would be a much larger number if you considered the time value of money today.
Oh, that's a really great point. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. I guess first I'd like to move to receive the Office of the Auditor General Recommendation Follow-Up Dashboard Report and the accompanying administrative update on Auditor's Dashboard.
No, that's wrong.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the ones I selected.
This is the 757.
Sorry, 7.5 and 7.6, the City Financial Condition Update and the Administrative Response for City Financial Condition Update.
Okay. And I also understand that Councillor Principe would have a subsequent motion. Okay, got it. Okay, is that it or?
No, and then I do have some questions. Yeah. So I'm just looking at the, again, do you have an answer on the income levels between, household incomes between Calgary and Edmonton?
So for 2020, Calgary was slightly higher, but we saw some shift in 2021 that brought them closer, and even I think Edmonton slightly higher. But maybe if Ms. Muthiardi is on the call, she can expand more if you'd like.
Can I just get some quick figures? Just because I do have other questions.
Yes, so in 2020, the median household income in the Calgary CMA was $109,520. For the Edmonton CMA, it was $107,450. That was in 2020. For the report, we had applied projected growth rates for 2021, and that put Edmonton slightly higher than in Calgary, but we won't see actual figures until next year.
Okay, thank you very much. And I don't want to dwell on comparing Calgary to Edmonton, but I've heard that, you know, from many constituents, and And I just want to sort of try to provide some rationale to them. Our long-term debt per capita, again, compared to Calgary, you indicated more major projects like Yellowhead and LRT. Has Calgary had less major projects than we have?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that Calgary has made different funding choices over time that has meant that they have been somewhat less reliant on debt than the city.
And how have they been able to manage that? Like what?
Tax levy increases.
They've done less tax levy increases?
No, I think over time they've done more tax levy increases to build money into their base.
Okay. And, whoops. And then I'm just amazed at slide number 7, how population and the urban land has grown over the past 50 or 60 years. It's, yeah, I knew the city had grown, but I didn't realize to what extent. So with that infrastructure that's required to service the greater area, geographical area, I understand that the ARA with the developers, they put in sort of that capital up front, but then it's up to the city then to maintain those roads. Is that right?
That's correct.
So our operational costs go up because of that to service? Okay. And then the other services that we provide to the growing population as well is also operational?
Yes, those are all operational, but the developers do pay for a lot of the infrastructure that goes in new neighborhoods.
Okay, awesome. And does Calgary have a similar
They do.
strategy?
They have a similar offsite levies bylaw that collects for arterial roads and for a number of other pieces of infrastructure.
Okay.
Councillor Wright, if I can just jump in to add on to something that Stacey mentioned earlier in comparison to City of Calgary. So something we saw when we were looking at them was they've built up significant capital reserves to fund a lot of their capital programs. So in generally speaking, around 30% of their capital budget is funded through their capital reserves that they've built up. And like Stacey mentioned, that's done through tax levy increases that they've built into their base over a longer period of time than we have. So they don't have to rely on debt as much as we do.
Okay, and do they rely on other levels of funding as well, other levels of government funding as well?
Yeah,
Or
they
is
would, similar to us, they'd rely on federal programs for specific projects and the provincial government for programs like MSI.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Knack, you haven't had a round yet. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So just one question, Ms. McCabe, with the City of Calgary example on the offsite levies, my understanding is, and I still don't know how they did it, but my understanding is that they were able to charge offsite levies for things more than roads and the utility infrastructure, even though we've never been able to do that. They somehow did, which helped them recover cost in undeveloped communities, correct?
That's correct. They do charge for a number of items. However, their bylaw is under review, and I know that's an active conversation with municipal affairs right now.
Yeah, and that was something, and I mean, obviously the city charter now has a separate conversation, but in terms of, I think they were collecting that for a lot of the same time we were building suburban neighborhoods, they were somehow collecting more, and it wasn't challenged, but it did help them offset, to Councillor Rutherford's points earlier, it helped them offset a lot of the cost of growth in new communities. Is that fair?
Potentially.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Thank you, Mayor Sohi.
Thank you. Councillor Tang?
Great, thank you, Mayor Sohi. I guess first to Ms. Mutiardi, just on that income number that you were just referencing, just to clarify, the Calgary one is for Calgary metropolitan area, and the Edmonton one, is that also for the metropolitan area or for the city proper?
That is correct. Both figures were for the metropolitan area.
Okay, and then I guess also just on the graph in the auditor's report for the population, 1.37 for Calgary and 1.06 for Edmonton, those are the city proper, is that right?
I'll need to double check and get back to you if that's.
Oh,
if that's
no
okay.
worries. Sorry, apologies. That was for the auditor.
Yeah, and I'll defer for a minute or two as Sharon Hahn pulls that data up first.
Sure, yeah, no problem. I guess I was also wondering about the MSI LGFF. I think Mr. Rai, you mentioned 35 million per year. Is that correct? I thought it was higher than that, but maybe I don't have my.
Yeah, so that was just forecasting out. So we were
Okay.
estimating MSI funding if it continued under the old program around $185 million a year. We're predicting with LGFF, local government fiscal framework, that'll be around 150 million. So it's just a rough number estimate.
Oh, I see. So when you said 35 million, it's 35 million less.
Correct.
Okay, and I believe Calgary is the projected is around 230 million under the LGFF, and just based on a very rough per capita calculation there, it's 167 for Calgary and 141 for Edmonton. I guess I just want to point out that is that not a huge discrepancy?
So I would just draw your attention to the fact that local government fiscal framework is allocated between the cities on the MSI formula. So it's a combination of population, assessment base, and road kilometers.
And that's the same for the LGFF, right? And that
That's
hasn't
correct.
changed. Okay, great, thank you. But I would just be interested of a closer look at that difference. Anyways, and I was curious, there's been a number of questions because I had a very similar line of thinking around, overall, how are we doing? And I was wondering if the auditor and the team has contemplated, we have the S&P credit rating. Have you thought about giving city sort of a financial grade, A through F? How are we doing overall?
If you look at the original report, there was an opinion offered by the city auditor then on the overall financial health. There was a lot of debate in our office as to whether we can provide a lettering based on 9 financial indicators. And I think that's really tough. The people who do that the best would be S&P and Moody's, who are staffed to the yin-yang, if you will, with financial experts. I'll part, and then I'll provide you with the information on the population after if you have a follow-up question.
Sure, yeah, no, I appreciate that. That was certainly kind of what percolated to me when I was going through the 9 indicators and just wondering, how to sort of communicate and the presentation of that in a way that's relatable to the general public. But I also know that, grading systems like that tend to come with a lot of flaws as well, because it doesn't always capture the nuances. Anyways, thank you very much for this report. I really thought it was a great primer for our continued conversation about capital. And if you have a follow-up, that'd be great.
Yeah, and if I may, on the population data, it is based on Statistics Canada. It's done by the Consensus Subdivision based on 2021 data, 1.06 million for Edmonton and 1.37 million for Calgary.
City proper.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. So this report is about the city's financial health. This is to city auditor. Our external agencies that we fund, such as EPL, EPC, or please EPS, are they included in the overall budget that you assessed?
It's the financial statement data, so yes.
They are, okay. So it will be, I think, I look forward to Councillor Principe's subsequent, because it will be good information to see where the growth is happening, right? Which department is growing less, more, right? And because we saw the presentation earlier on, not today, in the previous council meetings, that where we have seen a trend of growth in one section, which is police, almost 60% over 10 years from 2010 to 2020, I think that kind of analysis would be helpful for other departments and external agencies such as EPL and Explore Edmonton or Edmonton Unlimited. I know those are new agencies, but there may not be enough trend there. Just want to get that sense. Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you.
So I actually just want to clarify, like what is in the numbers would be library, Explore Edmonton, Fort Edmonton Management Company, nonprofit housing, the waste utility, land enterprise Blatchford, and Innovate Edmonton. That's the list of what's included here. It doesn't include every organization that we necessarily provide a grant to.
So EPS is not included in these numbers?
Sorry, EPS is always included in the city. It's not a separate legal entity.
Okay, got it. Okay, good. That's good. Thank you so much. That's all I needed to know. Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, sorry, I think I'll try to make this my last round, but I do have 3 more questions. To administration, it says that in 2019 to 2022, and at the start of the current 4-year cycle, budgets have been reduced to limit the financial impact on Edmonton taxpayers. I was wondering if you could give me some concrete examples of where budgets were reduced and how the reduction process occurred.
So I'll start more general, and perhaps Mr. or Harm Rye can provide a little bit more information. So going back to early in the around 2015, the city took a broader sweep to do reductions through programs like 2% and innovation, where across the corporation we looked broadly at where could we reduce budgets by a certain amount. Then we took what I would describe as a more surgical approach, for lack of a better word, looking at very specific parts of the organization where we thought we could make reductions. We've responded to a number of motions, including motions to reduce the tax levy by 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%, several different reduction strategies, and reimagine. And so we've done a number of those things. Specific examples, I'm just drawing a little bit of a blank on.
I have one, if you'd like.
Just a sec. Yeah, I would like a specific example. I think this is a narrative that's out there that we're not efficient and we're not doing enough. So I think that in this audit place, this is the place to be able to say, give me some specifics. So I would appreciate one and maybe even 2 examples of that.
One example is that we harvested all vacant FTEs in urban planning and economy. In order to not cut staff, we removed all of the vacant FTE positions.
Was that, and then my follow-up to that, was that a permanent harvest or a temporary harvest for COVID impacts?
It was a permanent harvest, and it wasn't just during COVID. It was prior to COVID when we were looking at things like trying to get the tax levy down to 2%. Those are the types of things that we were discussing.
And I would say, like, similar for the shared services or the internal services, we've limited the growth of those services. I did circulate a while ago a memo to council with a summary of all of the reductions. So, but it has both what council selected and what we didn't select. But we've also done things like made cuts to turf, and had those things added back. So I would just probably, I'll perhaps recirculate the memo that gives the more specific details.
I guess I'm just trying to understand what is a permanent reduction and what was sort of a reactionary, and I think it goes to the question about stabilizing it or getting that true number over COVID, right? So just that's what that is, but I'll leave that one to be mindful of my time. I did want to ask you, Ms. Padbury, the same question I asked about that debt management fiscal policy that is coming back. And while this report talks about our current policy, how do you foresee this policy change impacting these indicators if it moves forward?
So I think the intention of the new policy is to still provide some flexibility for council to be able to undertake the transformational projects that they're looking for, while still offering some constraint or some parameters in. The intention of that policy is to not make the indicator that you see in this report lower.
Okay, that's great to hear.
I can just add to that, Councilor Rutherford, just one thing, that policy is specifically built around maintaining a AA credit rating. So the highest debt servicing limit we have in there is to maintain that AA.
Okay, and then I want to keep on the policy, because that's my passion, is social and public policy. And I want to talk about FSR for a little bit here. So in the report, it says the continued use of the FSR for only emergent purposes is prudent financial management. But when I looked at the FSR policy, how it's written states that the FSR is designated for specific purposes for capital or operating as approved by council. And so what I'm seeing right now is sort of a dip into the FSR for any kind of what we think is important, but is there safeguards that need to be put around that FSR so that it depoliticizes that and protects our financial smoothing? Ms. Padbury, what are your thoughts?
So we do that through the creation of the minimum balance and the target balance and being in that corridor. That's primarily the purpose of having a minimum balance. I think if you're finding that, and that is why we're fairly conservative about the appropriateness of when the FSR is used, but it is within your purview as council to make motions to use funding from that source when you see it appropriate, provided it is one time. But we generally advise that that is for emergent items.
So, and maybe that's the issue then, because the policy, I looked in the policy and it does not define emergent. There's no definition of emergent in that FSR policy. So how do we define emergent?
So I think this policy defaults to like the standard definition of emergent. What we're trying to do is not make a policy so restrictive that it prevents you or forces a breach of a policy in the event that you have an emerging issue that you feel necessary to deal with as council.
Okay, that may lead to a follow-up subsequent, or a follow-up motion, not today, but in the future. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. So we have a motion on the floor. Can we go to vote?
But
Subsequent.
The city clerk message that we can, if we withdraw this, Councillor Principe can just put her motion on the floor because we don't need to accept for information if we have another motion.
Just to confirm, we can take either approach. You can vote on this motion on the floor and then a subsequent, or you could withdraw this motion and put forward the subsequent. Both work.
Yeah. Let's vote on it, then make a subsequent cleaner. Okay, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay, go to Councillor Principe to move her subsequent, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that administration provide a breakdown of spending increases by department as a percentage compared to inflation plus population percentages on an annual basis starting at 2022. Did I say it too many times? 2022. That's a long time from now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Principe. I just need one clarification. Would we to administration on this subsequent, right? Do you understand this to be doing analysis on the department's expenditures moving forward beyond 2020, monitoring starting at 2022, or do you see this as going back but provide a report in 2022?
I read this as going forward doing this, because you're asking on an annual basis starting at 2022. If your intention is a historical look back, if you could just define the period of the look back.
Yeah. So it needs to be defined saying maybe starting at 2010 or pick a year, right? Or then an annual report moving forward. Go ahead,
Is
Councillor.
that okay?
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
The chart in the report was started at 2000 and went to 2022. So it's just a breakdown of
Yeah,
that chart.
so it
That's really
started
all it is.
at 2020?
2000.
2000? Right, okay. It started
2000 was the base year. Yeah.
So I would just caution that the challenge in that is the city of 2000 was very different structurally. We've had numerous reorganizations of departments that I can't necessarily.
What would be the kind of appropriate starting point for that analysis to be kind of comparative? Say, would 2050?
I think we could probably do a reasonable job at 10 years, and then just adjust or explain to you where we've seen changes, like, for instance, the transfer of drainage in 2017.
2012? 2012, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Can you make that clear, please, in the starting at 2012?
We can, and can we request one more point of clarification?
Yeah.
Would you like the information back in a memorandum, or would you like it back in a report at a future meeting?
A report.
At a report? Yeah. And which meeting would you like it reported back to?
They'll probably go to executive, just.
Would it?
Councillor Rutherford? I'll check, maybe executive, probably, I don't know which, clerk, you would know that better than I do, like which committee. Councillor Rutherford, go ahead.
I guess I would, we're in audit committee, and I hear the intention behind this, but I actually am wondering if this should be directing the city auditor to include this in this same report on an annual basis, the breakdown. Like, we have the charts from the auditor. Would it not make, and this is to the mover, would it not make sense to direct the auditor that going forward to include that departmental breakdown in his audit? So the report comes to audit committee? Yeah.
Would that work? I mean, Councillor.
I think that, in my opinion, I think that's a good idea going forward, but I think it would be nice to see the breakdown in the past 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a two-part motion then, one where the administration do the look back breakdown, and going forward, the auditor incorporates that into this annual report that they're already doing?
Well, that sounds like a friendly amendment to me. I don't know, though, if it changes.
Yeah. We can get a view from city auditor on that.
Yeah, so I'm open to the idea. However, I do ask you to think about the value that such a report would provide annually. Where, it's very apropos because we're going into a 4-year cycle. Maybe this is every second year biannually so that you get a broader view, because I don't imagine anything significant is going to change. And if there is, we will provide you with an updated report as needed.
Okay, good. Councillor Knack?
So sounds good. I just wanted to see if in terms of the look back, can that just be a memo? Because I think that'd be valuable to have that for my guess is budget, but I don't know. Does that give you? Do you have time to do that memo along with every other million things you're doing?
I don't think I can produce what you're looking for.
Okay.
Before budget.
All right.
But we do, we will have trending information in the budget. We just won't have it back to 2012.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, well, then I'm less worried. I'll leave. I'm good.
That's right.
I just removed myself. I just wanted to know when we could expect it, so. Not before budget, I understand.
No. That is too much information. Staff is so busy on the budget. Okay, so can we change that to 2012, please? And have you determined which committee?
Yeah, so we can change the motion so that it reads that administration provide a report which includes a breakdown of spending increases by department as a percentage compared to inflation plus population percentages for the period of 2012 to 2022 at the next at the executive committee 13 weeks from now is the due date.
Okay, so put the due date in there. Okay, Councillor Knack? Okay. Okay, well, I think we're ready to...
We're just going to load it into eScribe.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, so please, anyone to speak, Councillor Knack. Or Councillor Rutherford, you speak to as well?
No, I'm still on, I think.
You have questions?
No, I had questions, but it hasn't switched to.
Okay,
it
I see.
hasn't changed.
Okay, so, okay,
I'm,
all right.
I'm not on the board.
Okay, Councillor Knack.
Thanks, Mayor Sohi, and I could have probably spoken at the receipt of information. I mean, they're sort of 6 1/2 dozen of the other. I just wanted to offer a few thoughts, because I think back to the report, the audit that was done in November 2020, and in that report it did talk about, I think the conclusion officially was that the city's financial condition is not as healthy as it was 20 years ago, and primarily related to a substantial increase in long-term debts, the majority of which is tax supported. And when I remember that audit, the part that really jumped out at me was obviously in about 2004 was where there was a pretty major shift. That audit went through a really good, this was just an update report, so it didn't need to go over the same detail, but in that audit it talked about all of the various investments over 20 years and all of the capital infrastructure, and we've all seen the benefit of that now. But I mean, we think back to 2004, there wasn't, the Meadows, Twilliger, Clairview rec centers, there wasn't the LRT expansion to the south, there wasn't LRT expansion to Blatchford, to Nate. And so certainly that was a very valid conclusion in that audit report, that we weren't in the same financial position because we've done massive investments, and I think far more than most cities have, which I think plays a little bit into the why we see ourselves on the higher end of some of the major cities. So I was not uncomfortable when I saw that audit report 2 years ago, and likewise when I see this one here, I'm not feeling nervous because I know that the city administration has worked on this very hard, and from the new debt management fiscal policy is a great example of that, of recognizing sort of the current day realities and how to be very thoughtful about what we'll invest in and what we won't invest in. So just wanted to offer my thanks to the city administration for their ongoing work on this, because I think they've helped find that good balance at a time when really over the last 20 years, councils have really been trying to catch up on decades of underinvestment and decades of renewal in our infrastructure, which wasn't being done. And I mean, I still think almost every city, we are the envy of almost every city with something like neighborhood renewal. Other cities are still trying to figure out how you get to that point. Well, we did it thanks to, at the time, Councillor Sohi, now Mayor Sohi, and the team that was in place at that point in time. So I feel overall fairly good. Again, obviously we still have to be cautious. We're not going to throw caution to the wind, but I think that's why the new debt management fiscal policy is the way it is. It's drafted in a very thoughtful way. The other piece is, and this dealt with a lot of the conversation I heard today around, that narrative. I think Councillor Rutherford was talking about that, about the narrative of where we've saved money. And I'm not sure how this operating budget will be produced, but I know in a lot of the other operating budgets, there was usually a section called budget building blocks that actually outlined line by line examples after example after example, because over the last 8 years or so, there's been literally hundreds of millions of dollars either saved to help reduce the tax levy through the operating budget or used to reallocate to other priorities. And a lot of those are in various budget documents, but I think to Councillor Rutherford's point, I hope we can show here over the last 2 budget cycles, here's every single item that we've changed and adjusted, because administration did a lot of that work. Councils of the day did a lot of that work, and so that notion that some people have around, hey, why don't you just try to look for savings? Oh goodness, I never thought of that. Well, it turns out actually everyone thought about it and has been working on it diligently over a very long time. So we're going into some tight budgets, but I actually feel really good about where we're at, and this report as well is just very helpful to reinforce both what we should keep our eye out on and where the flags are. And again, not to say we should continue down the path that we have for the last 20 years, but overall, I'm quite happy with what's been invested in. Even with the increase in the debt numbers, it's been primarily very thoughtful investments. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Please, Councillor Prince-Perry to close?
Okay. No, I'm good, thank you.
No, good. Okay, please vote.
Mr. Mayor, we're just going to load the updated language. And just to confirm, is this a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. Next one is safety code permits, right? Yep. And inspection audit? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we'll go to city auditor, then administration to make the presentation.
All right. I'll get started as the slide is queuing up here. This safety code permitting inspection, as the chart shows you in the slide, occurs between when you get a developmental permit and ultimately when you take ownership of your home. The processes that are involved in there are 3 phases: obtaining a building permit, the issuance of the permit, and inspections at various stages of the building of your home. Our audit objective was to look at whether the permit and inspection process is efficient and meets stakeholder expectation. In the report, we do scope our audit to new single detached homes. However, we believe that the observations made in this report can help inform the processes for multi-unit housing and commercial units. Next slide, please. So, as always, I do share some of the good things that are happening, some of the positive news, which is there's good stakeholder engagement. The safety code officers receive training and certification, and the branch itself has ongoing work initiatives that are continually looking to enhance the processes within the branch. In the report itself, we had 5 findings of 5 recommendations, but on the slide, I am going to highlight 3 of the findings in the presentation. The first one is with respect to the minimum inspection standards. If you refer to page 133 of the package, you'll notice that we provide a chart that shows that that minimum inspection standard does vary depending on the sources that you look at. Whether it would be the city's Q&P, which is its standard setting document, or the website, or the workflow system, the numbers do vary, and this might lead to some stakeholder confusion on the inspection requirements. We will also highlight that the branch conducts roughly 10 to 12 inspections for each new single detached housing, which is higher than the standards that you see set out on those charts, particularly the city's Q&P and the Safety Codes Council. The second finding is with respect to inspection, risk-based inspections. Kudos to the branch. They implemented a risk-based inspection process in 2019 designed to focus resources on where risk is, and more importantly, not allocating inspection resources to where there is low risk. However, we found that the branch continues to conduct inspections in areas where the pass rate is high, and we believe that applying a risk-based inspection model is intended to and could reduce the number of inspections. The third finding I want to highlight is around the processes for permit issuance and inspection. Just highlight 2 things. The first one is we observed that the applications themselves, the building permit applications, do sit in abeyance for 14 days as it's waiting to be transferred or assigned to plan examiners. We also observed that it has taken longer from the moment you book your inspection to the date of your inspection. And we believe that enhancing the process flow can lead to reduced timelines and reduced stakeholder frustrations. We made the 5 recommendations, but on this slide you'll see the 3 that are related to what I highlighted in my presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and I'd like to thank the City Auditor and your audit team for the thorough investigation of the Safety Codes and Inspections program administered by Development Services. The professional work done by the audit team is really involved our team, which we appreciated, and they took time to listen to the industry throughout the process. The process was inclusive and will be instrumental in our journey of continuous improvement within the department. Permits and licensing are an important part of our guiding development of achieving a safe, inclusive, and vibrant, walkable city envisioned by the city plan. And as noted in the audit report, administration accepts the findings, and work has already begun to address the recommendations by the end of Q3 2023. I'm now going to pass the floor to Kim Petrin, who's going to walk through some of our process improvement work and our upcoming work to address those audit recommendations. Kim?
Thank you. Good morning. The Safety Codes permits and inspection have a broad range of customers. We have homeowners doing renovations, contractors doing commercial or residential renovations, business owners opening a new business or moving into a new space, or a home builder who might construct 200 homes a year. Each of these customers have different knowledge and understanding of the process, requirements, and timelines. However, each of them expect excellent customer service that is reliable, consistent, and helpful. We're committed to deliver excellent service, and this means we're on a journey of continuous improvement, as well as improving our tools and training for our employees to do their work. We know Edmonton's ability to retain, attract, and grow business is impacted by how the city regulates and provides permitting and licensing services. The Development Services branch started on a journey of change in 2017 with a project largely focused on the initial stages of land development services, such as rezoning and subdivisions, to decrease application requirements, standardize technical review of applications to only what was required, streamlining the process, and setting improved service level targets. Launched in 2020, the Permit and Licensing Initiative is focused on implementing changes to improve the back end of development for processes related to permits and licensing. We are listening and learning from our customers and staff. It's critical for this work. We do this through outreach through our Permit and Licensing Initiative launch, through 2 red tape roundtable sessions we held this year with small and medium-sized businesses, and we recently piloted a customer survey for home improvement permits, which is soon to be expanded to most of our services. We're committed to address the auditor's recommendations. We recognize clarity on our processes, requirements, and number of inspections is critical, as well as ensuring our team has the tools they need to do their job, such as standard operating procedures, updated job aids, and checklists to ensure consistency. Edmonton is a demonstrated leader in using innovation to improve municipal services and is the first city in Canada to use artificial intelligence in a risk-based predictive model to increase the efficiencies of safety code inspections. The city received a Smart Cities Award in 2020 for our innovation on artificial intelligence solution for inspections, and we're prepared to explore this further. The city is committed to transparency and visibility in how we are delivering our service. Service levels were established earlier this year, and we're now establishing the monitoring to report on that performance. And further to that, we intend to build on process improvements, including the zoning bylaw renewal, to establish guaranteed timelines for select commercial and industrial application types. The Development Services quarterly report will be updated to reflect performance measures that are reliable, understandable, comparable, and include targets. I'm excited to have Rob McAdam here on my right. The new Director of Safety Code Permits and Inspection team joined Development Services this week. You may know him from his 19 years in Edmonton Fire Rescue Services, and most recently as the Deputy Fire Chief of Public Safety, leading work to address problem properties with our Community Property Safety team. His leadership values are grounded in 3 C's: competency, ensuring clarity on role, training, and innovation; confidence, to enable decision-making and managing risk by staff at all levels; and consistency in how we do our work, which I believe provides a really strong foundation for success of this team. We have made improvements such as automating simple deck and garage applications for permits in a day. We've set service levels, we've phased permits to get shovels in the ground sooner, and have an inspection booking system for certainty on inspection times. But we know there's more work to do, and we're committed to that through our journey of continuous improvement. But we are making progress, we're receiving positive feedback from our customers, and we're being recognized nationally and provincially for our efforts. As you know, Edmonton was number 2 in the 2020 CHBA's benchmarking study related to municipal improvement processes, timelines for approval, and government charges. And most recently, the City of Edmonton received the Government of Alberta's 2022 Municipal Excellence Awards for red tape reduction. So thank you. We'd be pleased to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for the presentations. I, at this time, will go to Don Tolsma, Canadian Home Builders Association, to speak. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation. Please go ahead.
Good morning, members of the Audit Committee. My name is Don Tolsma, and I'm here today on behalf of the Canadian Home Builders Association Edmonton Region, where I serve on the board of directors. The residential construction industry in Edmonton is a network of local businesses that represents more than 26,000 jobs, 1.9 billion in annual wages, and 3 billion in annual investment. I wish to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the association today. The CHBA ER members built 80% of the new units in Edmonton in 2021. This means that the findings of this report are directly impacting our members every day. We want to thank the City of Edmonton for commissioning this audit report and fully support all the recommendations as outlined. The Development Services Branch has developed new processes like risk-based inspection using artificial intelligence to reduce the number of inspections required. More recently, they adjusted the occupancy permit inspection and delivery process to make the occupancy stage of construction more efficient. We are encouraged by the results of the report and believe that these adjustments will have significant positive impacts on the permit timelines and overall efficiencies. Over the past 6 months, builders have received extended wait times for inspections. The cumulative impact of multiple inspection delays can total upwards of 45 days. Recommendation 1 in the report looks to review and reset minimum inspection requirements so that the service expectations are clear and consistent. This may reduce the number of inspections required and save time and resources from both the city and industry perspective. A clear guideline for all stakeholders to adhere to will eliminate instances of dry runs and unnecessary return trips. We have trialed the risk-based inspections with several inspection types and are pleased to see a willingness to expand this program in recommendation number 2. By focusing in-person resources on inspections that have the most impact, outcomes for the end user can be improved without adding layers of red tape. CHBA ER members have spent countless hours going through lines of data to better support the issues around more information required requests. Through our research, the biggest issues identified were challenges with the intake process. We have made several recommendations to the city on how to improve the intake process to ensure complete applications are not being held up at the plans examination stage. CHBA ER, alongside administration from the Development Services Branch, has also offered education around permit applications and more information required requests to ensure our members understand how to complete an application and ways they can improve. Given that recommendation 3 is aligned with our recommendations made to administration over the past year, consistency is key. An example used in the report where one inspector gave a conditional inspection and another failed is something we see often. A permit for the exact same house may fail with one safety codes officer and be approved with another. There are many challenges with consistency across the permitting and inspection processes. We strongly believe improved procedures and checklists for application intake, along with developing operating procedures and checklists to improve consistency among safety codes officers' site inspections, as outlined in recommendation 3, has potential to drastically change permit timelines and overall builder experience. Over the past few years, city administration has been continuously looking for opportunities to find efficiencies and work with industry on process improvements. Recommendation 4 aligns with a culture change that we have noticed with administration, and we are excited for the improved efficiencies that come from the review. Finally, we are pleased to see the recommendation for a more reliable, understandable, comparable, and measurable performance report. The Home Builders Association in Edmonton has communicated that the timelines outlined in the quarterly report don't match the experience from our industry. We are encouraged by this recommendation and look forward to a more usable report. As your city building partners, we support all the recommendations outlined in the audit report and firmly believe that the audit identified the existing challenges with the current safety codes, permits, and inspections. We're happy to engage and assist with the outlined recommendations and believe they will have a positive impact. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much for joining us today and waiting. Any questions to Mr. Tolsma? Okay, good. All right, thank you so much. We'll go to administration for questions. Councillor Knack, you exempt to this?
Yes, we had a speaker, so I'm okay. Others?
Okay, Councillor Wright?
I think finding efficiencies and streamlining processes is just a wonderful way to approach things, and also save us some money, hopefully in the end. So there will continue to be inspections along the way. It's not.
That's correct.
It's not just sort of a self-check that the builder says they've done it.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's part of our review for recommendation 1, to look at the number of inspections we are doing and have clarity on the number of inspections, the type of inspections through the process.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, thinking back to my mortgage lending days, so if we were to do a construction mortgage or whatever, we would have different checkpoints that to advance funds, so like foundation rough-in lockup, I'm just wondering, is there any need to check in or with financial institutions, CMHC, to see if it sort of meets their requirements as well?
Our quality management plan is the commitment to municipal affairs in terms of the service delivery, so I would think that that would probably be well aligned of where we would confirm the number of inspections.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the city auditor first. I didn't see anything in the recommendations about oversight. And so I know there's a tension between efficiency and effectiveness, but also how do we make sure that there's the proper checks and balances so that, for example, what I've heard from some of my constituents is that there is potential that some inspections are getting fast-tracked or that certain things are being overlooked with kickbacks, those kind of things. And I'm not saying that that's true, I'm just saying that that is something. So how do we make sure that when I'm talking to constituents, I can say, but there's still, even though we're reducing red tape, even though we're doing these things, there's still proper oversight. Was that part of this, or does that, yeah, I just wanted your thoughts on that.
I'll let Stephanie speak to the actual processes in place, but if I pull the example of a risk-based inspection, you know, if you have a builder who is, say, 100% compliant for the last 5 years, that doesn't necessarily mean you lack all controls and not have spot checks on them. So I think it's a fine balance of where do you put very constrained resources while protecting the public interest and having safety.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just to add to that, through our risk-based model, we do audits on any inspections that were through the artificial intelligent risk-based model. So there are follow-up inspections happening, and the builder doesn't know when or if that's going to happen. So there's still an expectation of quality. Yeah.
Councillor Rutherford, I do want to address your comment about Edmontonians think there might be kickbacks in this system. There are not, and there is a whistleblower hotline. If there was an Edmontonian who ever expected that, I would strongly encourage them to report that to the whistleblower hotline.
What is the whistleblower hotline, and how do Edmontonians know about that? Edmontonians know about that option?
We do have a whistleblower hotline that you can submit claims around fraud and abuse. The Office of the City Auditor, I'll promote now, has an email by which Edmontonians can submit and provide us with additional information. I will come back with that exact email because I don't have it, but I want to make sure that I provide it publicly.
No, that's perfect. I think it's always good to repeat the information and the services and the resources that are available to Edmontonians.
Councillor Rutherford, if I may, one other piece I would add just around that point is the Safety Code Council also audits the City of Edmonton on our inspections.
Perfect. No, that's great to hear. And so I guess my last question then just to administration is, when you see these recommendations, and I know you've accepted them, but where do you think of the 5 recommendations there's the biggest opportunity for improvement?
I think they're all important, which is why we're committed to fulfill the recommendations by the end of Q3 of 2023. But I think of the 5, you know, the recommendations around clarity on the number of inspections is good for our customers. Updating our job aids and operating procedures is good for the team. So collectively, we can, you know, work together with our customers and have that clarity, clear, transparent, predictable process.
Okay, well, what do you say about, you know, when the speaker spoke about how sometimes one thing can get approved and it's not approved in another? Is that's related to recommendation 1? Is that correct? That sometimes that's what the Canadian Home Builders person said, that the same kind of product gets passed in one and doesn't in another. Is that going to be the clarifying is that addressing recommendation 1?
I would probably put that under recommendation 3, where we need to update our standard operating procedures and have checklists, and that creates some consistency. It was a consistency piece, and I think, every safety code officer has their own experience and risk tolerance. So while you might have a situation that's similar, based on the experience or history of that individual, it may be slightly different. So that's why it's important to have job training and job aids and support from our supervisors in terms of how we do our work.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Sorry, no, hold on. We'll go to Mr. Meramombe first.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Just looking at the items noted in the report and certainly the comments coming through on the achievements that have been made in terms of recognitions, I think it's a commendable effort. I just wanted to follow up by asking the city auditor directly on whether or not there was an assessment of, say, KPIs and comparative with other cities on how well the city of Edmonton is doing on that front, considering that it's supposedly a leader on the AI front.
So that was one of our procedures in our audit program, which was a look across the country to see if we can get benchmarks of comparators. We even brought a subject matter expert. I think he was a former president of the Safety Codes Council, and we were hard pressed from our end, anyways, to be able to find that information. We attempted to get the Safety Codes Council as well as to gather that information, but again, I think benchmarks are good if they're available. And then they'll help you inform decision making, but again, that apples to apples. So we tried to get the information, but we weren't able to.
And as a follow-up, so in terms of overall performance, how satisfied are you from the audit standpoint, on the efficiency effectiveness standpoint?
May I ask for clarification on overall efficiency and framing the scoping of that question, please?
I am trying to understand, the level of evaluation from your end on how you have perceived this function to be operating in terms of, efficiency, and how effective possibly it could be.
Well, the audit did highlight several recommendations, which you can read, which really speaks to opportunities for further efficiencies. Whether it's reducing the amount of time administratively from permitting all the way to the end of inspection, that was highlighted in there. So there are opportunities at different levels of the branch. So when we make the recommendation around consistent checklists or policies and procedures and guidance, it goes back to having some consistent decisions around inspection results. So to answer your question, yes, there are opportunities for efficiency and effectiveness.
Councillor Tang?
I guess just to follow up on that comparator, I think it was CHBA who had that award of Edmonton being the #2 fastest permit. And does that include safety code permit too?
I believe so, yeah.
It's a national award, so
right.
it's CHBA national, and it includes a number of things. It also includes things like how much we charge for offsite levies, as well as how complicated our land use planning policy framework is, as two examples.
So even though that's external, but that could that also be kind of looked at as a benchmark, just on the topic of benchmarking?
Yes, absolutely. I would say that's a national benchmark.
Yeah. I guess I think that was, but I guess just related to that, even though we are doing great work and improving, but with the recommendation of improving efficiency, that's just part of our constant improvement process to get even better. Maybe next time #1. I don't know.
Absolutely, Councillor Tang. That is our commitment to continue to improve how we deliver our service. Our customers' expectations continue to change, and we continue to rise to those expectations. So there is a new CHBA national study coming out for 2022, so looking forward to the results of that.
Interesting, yeah. And I was pleased to see the letter of support from the industry and, of course, Mr. Tolsma's presentation. I thought it was really, very specific to individual recommendation. And that research that they had done, working with the Development Services branch for industry education, which is all great. I guess I'm like, what is the other side of kind of that community end of things, beyond sort of complaint-driven, those kinds of measures or work? Yeah.
So part of the work that we did is, we're striving to find some consistency. And what we were hearing from our customers is the inconsistency around when applications had missing information. So we collectively dug into that data to understand what are the common things that are missing. And what we've done is we've, created a list of common things that you need to consider when making an application. We've met with individual applicants that have high volumes to go through specifically, like, here's where you could make improvement, and it's been excellently received by industry in terms of how they're able to submit complete applications, which we can process more quickly because there's not a lot of back and forth. So we do measure the percentage of applications that are missing information. So we've actually started to see that go down.
Councillor Tang, if you're interested more in terms of the overall impact on Edmontonians as a result of this program, I'd say at the end of the day, it is to make sure that we're providing safe, affordable homes overall in our city, and that people are able to get into them in a very efficient manner as well. So, we are focused on not just the efficiency and effectiveness to industry, but also what's the overall product that's being delivered to Edmontonians. And that's a joint effort between things like the Safety Codes Council that we work with, as well as with industry and with community groups.
Yeah, that is helpful. Thank you. I think part of it was just what, as the discussion and the Q&A was happening, I was just thinking, it would be great to have less and less Edmontonians feel that there are kickbacks, for example, or have this negative perception around that industry, city, and community relationship.
I do not think that there's a perception of kickbacks at all in Edmonton. I do think, I don't think that exists, so I want to work to debunk that myth, because it's not something that have very high ethical standards and expect that of everybody in the department who works here, and know that there are many people, actually all people, who adhere to that as well. In my entire time in this job, I have not experienced a complaint and or an investigation in this area. Our safety codes officers hold themselves to a very high regard as well, and they're also accredited through the Safety Codes Council, which would also hold them to a very high regard as well.
Yeah, there's lots of checks and balances, so I think that's great to point out. And I think yesterday I did look at the capital budget. Related to that was the service perception survey, including things like the planning development, and I think satisfaction was actually quite high. So just want to point that out as well.
And if I may supplement, during the course of our audit, we did reach out to various stakeholders, get an understanding, and from those stakeholders that we reached out to, we did not hear about such kickbacks as well.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for actually reinforcing that, because it's important for us to state that and public to understand. Really appreciate that, because our safety code officers absolutely play a very important and critical role, because buying a house is the biggest investment that an average family makes. So their role is absolutely important, and so we really appreciate that. And also want to convey again congratulations on all the good work that development services have been doing in the reducing red tape and the reducing unnecessary regulations. Regulations will always be important, but and inspection will always be important, but reducing the unnecessary requirements, right? So and also using the technology to improve our process. So I don't have any question. Maybe I'm speaking to it now. So I am speaking to it. I can move I'll move the recommendation in both, right? So
shall I take the chair while you do that?
No, I don't give at a committee. I don't have to. I'll move the recommendations in both reports, right? And I see city auditor want to say something.
Yes, Mayor. I want to go back to promoting the whistleblower or the fraud and abuse contact information. I was just waiting for a little bit of timing to separate the earlier conversation from promoting this. So if you Google Office of the City Auditor, you will land on our public site. At the very end is an email that says city.auditor@edmonton.ca. If there are cases of fraud and abuse, we do welcome that information to come through that email. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll continue my speaking. Anyone else? Anyone else to speak? Councillor, I'll finish because I just have a few remarks to make. Additional. I can, yeah, I'll close it. Councillor Rutherford, go ahead.
I want to just say thank you for this. It's great to see the work being done and the culture of continual improvement that I'm seeing in many departments, but especially in the planning department, because, you know, as we learned the other day, how important time is in that development industry's overall calculation of the work that they're going to do. So efficiency and effectiveness in our permitting is really important. So I appreciate that. And I did not bring up the kickbacks because I was in any way accusatory. I want to be clear, though, that even if we have high integrity, sometimes public perception, and I'm only bringing forward the voice of the constituents that I represent, and that have a few of them come to me, highlighting those concerns. And so I think it's important that we bring those up and we have that in a public to dispel those concerns, but also give people a valid channel in which to report those concerns if they have them. So I want to clarify that is not my perception or anything, but I also do want to bring forward that there are a few in my ward, at least, that as residents that have had that perception. But thank you very much to both the city auditor and the planning and urban economy team for your great work on this, and I look forward to seeing the outcomes from these recommended actions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I once again repeat, thank you. I really enjoy working with all of you. It's and I have seen that the continuous growth and improvement and willingness to hear more ideas from the industry, from stakeholders, and ideas from us, and answering all the questions and embracing some of our even tough questions taken in a very positive way, right? So I really appreciate that. I really enjoy working with all of you, right? And so please keep up the good work. Only feedback I will give is that sometimes we hear from constituents about inconsistency in when the inspectors show up, right? Not knowing the exact amount of the time, let's say, from 10 to 4, not knowing, well, you come at 11 instead of 4, right? I think that kind of little things that we can also improve on. So good work. Please do convey our deepest appreciations to folks at the safety code, all the safety code officers, and do convey to them that we appreciate all the work that they do. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor Sohi, and just
you can't speak now.
Oh, I can't. Oh,
no.
sorry. I thought you were looking right.
The item is closed. Right.
Sorry about
You're
that.
You're going to go off.
Point of order. I was just saying thank you. That was
okay. Okay. Well, thank you is accepted. Thank you.
I was just going to move that we extend orders to finish the agenda.
This is the last item. Yeah.
It was just recommendation from clerks.
Okay, well, let's vote to finish the...
If there is a notice of motion after, Mayor Sohi,
okay,
we'll have to close this motion, then we can
let's
move to
vote
to
extend the order to finish the agenda. Please vote.
We're just getting it loaded.
There we go.
It's ready. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay, now we can come back and vote on the items on safety code permits and inspection audit. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. No private, no motions pending, none. Notice of motions and motions without customary notice. Sorry? Councillor Rutherford, you have a?
No, I don't have a question.
Okay. Notice of motions or motions without customary notice? Councillor Rutherford?
Yeah, so I'm just providing notice that I will be providing the following motion at the October 31st City Council meeting. So the motion is that administration incorporate the entire housing continuum, emergency shelter to market housing, into the revised housing strategy to ensure a comprehensive, systemic, and interconnected approach to addressing housing and homelessness. This will include work with the province on responses to immediate needs of unsheltered individuals, transitions into housing, as well as innovative solutions to address core housing need.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Okay, we are adjourned.